Okay. So again, good morning and welcome everyone. We're thrilled to have you joining us. My name is Susie Flug Silva and I'm the Siegel Program Director. And we're happy that you're here for our 2020 Segal Fellows in Action panel. We are the Eli J. and Phyllis N. Siegel Citizen Leadership Program. And as most of you on the call know, our mission is to foster the next generation of citizen leaders. You can see a little bit more about the program here on the screen, but since we only have a half hour today, we're going to focus it on hearing from our fellows. Kyle and I welcome any questions that you might have for us about the program, especially those of you that are joining us today because you're consider applying to be a fellow. Please remember that the applications to become a Brandeis or Heller Siegel Fellow are due by November 1st. And we are housed here at the Center for Youth and Communities at the Heller School at Brandeis, and we're especially honored today to be joined by the Dean of the Heller School, David Weil, by Dr. Maria Madison, Associate Dean, who I believe is joining us in a little bit, by the head of the MPP program, Michael Doonan, by the director of the Center for Youth and Communities, Susan Kernan, and by so many others from across Heller and Brandeis who are here. So thank you for joining us. We're also honored and thrilled to be joined by the Siegel family, by Phyllis Siegel, Maura, and John Siegel, who created this program in honor of their father and husband, Eli Siegel, so many years ago, and whose passion for our mission and for this Siegel legacy have built the program into what it is today. We're going to spend most of our time today hearing from our Segal Fellows, who are amazing, and Kyle's going to say a little bit more about how impressive they've been and how amazing their internships were. But before I turn it over to him to introduce himself and to do that, I also just want to give one more thank you to our host site partners. This was an especially interesting spring and summer to work with organizations to figure out what internships would look like virtually. And all of these organizations you see here on the screen and you'll hear from today worked so hard not only to help their fellows have an impact over the summer, but also to help them grow and develop, and to do that in a virtual and ever-changing environment this summer. So our thanks to all of them. And I know we have several of these organizations represented online. I think at least some folks from the Naleo Educational Fund and the Department of Public Health. So I'm excited to turn it over to Kyle to talk about our amazing fellows and then turn it over to them.
Hello, everybody. As Susie had mentioned, my name is Kyle Richard. I'm the Siegel Program Coordinator, once again, part of the very tight-knit team that we have as part of the Center for Youth and Communities, as well as just part of the Siegel program in general. All the fellows that you see today were very, very active and engaged participants in the Siegel program, including really exemplifying what it means to be a citizen leader, as well as the core competencies. When I was editing their videos, it was just really inspiring to me to see all of their stories play and what they really add to the program and the different tracks, programs, streams, organizational types that they reached out to. And so I hope that through watching their videos and listening to their speeches today, you will get the opportunity to really understand that it not only is it to learn what it means to be a citizen leader, but also to be one. And I feel like all of our fellows today have exemplified that through their efforts. I'll pass it back to you, Susie.
Thank you, Kyle. And yes, thank you to all of our fellows. So with that, we're going to just go in alphabetical order by last name. We'll hear briefly for about a minute from each of our fellows, knowing that if you haven't already watched, you can go online to watch their 4 or 5 minute videos that talk in more depth about their internship experiences, and that today, the majority of the time will be to hear live from our fellows. So with that, we will start off with hearing from you, Zayna.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zayna Basma, and I'm in my final semester of my MBA and Master of Public Policy program at the Heller School, concentrating in children, youth, and family policy. And this summer, thanks to the Siegel program, I interned with Mass Inc., which is a nonprofit think tank in Boston, and I got to focus on the digital divide in Massachusetts gateway cities. And for me, this experience taught me a lot about the impact that all of our systems can have on the educational experiences of youth, and specifically that each link in every system needs to center around equitable access in order to provide all of our students with the education that they deserve. I'm also really excited to say that this experience really verified for me that I want to remain in the policy and research analysis field as I think about my future career path. And I just want to thank you all for being here today.
Thanks so much, Zayna. And with that, we're looking forward to hearing from Alejandro Punia.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry if my Wi-Fi is unstable. I'm on campus right now, but this summer I had the honor to intern with Siegel, the San Francisco Housing Action Coalition, and there I worked on Bay Area housing policies, and I learned so much about the importance of like understanding the history behind the work that I'm doing in order to successfully represent and work with communities that are important to me. And yeah, I'm just so thankful for the Segal Fellowship for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Ale. And next, we're excited to hear from Lydia Casimir-Dufleur.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lydia Casimir. I am a Segal Fellow. I'm also a 2010 AmeriCorps member, so been part of this. And I'm an MPP MBA, and so I focus in poverty alleviation. And I did my fellowship at the United Negro College Fund, and I worked in their advocacy division. And let's see, more or less, I helped them develop out some of their core talking points on K through 12 education advocacy, particularly as it related to the African American community, especially given the changing landscape of this summer's protests and COVID. And the biggest takeaway was really just having the privilege to be a Segal Fellow and having the funding behind me. To be able to find an organization that was my top choice, who took me in without sort of hesitation for those very reasons, was just such an honor. And I was really nervous about doing this in a COVID summer. And also similar to Zayna, this internship sort of solidified that I'm interested in doing campaign work and advocacy work around policy initiatives. So it was great to sort of learn that about myself.
Great, thank you so much, Lydia. And now we get to hear from Mary O'Leary.
Hi, everyone. Like Susie said, I'm Mary O'Leary, 2020 Segal Fellow. I'm also a second-year MPP MBA student concentrating in women, gender, and sexuality studies. I'm coming to you from Philadelphia today. That's where I'm from and where I am this semester. And my area of interest is gender-based violence, which kind of fit right into the internship that I did this summer with Time's Up. I worked in their healthcare policy sector on a couple initiatives. One was COVID policy recommendations for healthcare CEOs, and then also preliminary research on equity in healthcare and public health systems. And the biggest takeaway from my summer overall is that I'm considering career options, and while I'm still interested in nonprofit management and also policy research, I've been considering going into law more. A lot of the Time's Up people are lawyers and they're very inspiring, so I'm interested in learning more about that. And yeah, this summer was really great, and I'm really grateful for the whole program and staff.
Thanks so much, Mary. And John Rodriguez, now we're excited to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Rodriguez. As Susie just mentioned, I am a senior at Brandeis. I'm studying health science, society, and policy with triple minors in legal studies, African and African American studies, and social justice, social policy. Typical Brandeis student and a 2020 Segal Fellow. I'm a first generation Cape Verdean American, born and raised in Brockton, Massachusetts. And I'm passionate about how inadequate access to resources impact incarceration rates. And so this summer, I had the opportunity to intern remotely at the Massachusetts Department of Public Health in their Child and Youth Violence Prevention Services Department under the supervision of the one and only Kendall Bruce, who's actually with us here today. My work focused on youth violence programming across the state of Massachusetts. And my biggest lesson that I learned this summer was regarding the importance of mobilizing community members and understanding a community's history in order to better understand its drivers of violence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. As John said, thank you, Kendall, for joining us today. As people have referenced, our fellows are amazingly busy with school, with work, with life, and one of our fellows, Irma Zamaripa, is in class right now. So we appreciate that her supervisor, Elizabeth Billet from the Naleo Educational Fund, is online with us, and Kyle has shortened her 5-minute video into a little 1-minute intro that we'll get to hear now.
All right, can everybody see my screen? Good, okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Irma Samarripa and I will be talking about my internship this summer with Naleo Educational Fund. During my time there, I had the opportunity to conduct a research project. This research project was fundamental in picturing the future of Naleo Educational Fund on how they analyze voter turnout rates. Now, this is something that I was really proud of because I was able to understand the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has on voter registration rates, specifically for areas and counties with the lowest turnout rates in the state of Texas. This internship ultimately had a very, very big impact on my identity as a leader. It allowed me to explore my passion for social justice and equity, and this wouldn't have been possible without the Siegel program. If it weren't for this internship and if it weren't for the Siegel program, it really would have been a little bit harder, to find what my passions were. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I'm very grateful for all the relationships that I met and that I made during this time over the summer at Naleo Educational Fund.
Great. Thank you for playing that, Kyle. And with that, we wanted to have 15 minutes for Q&A. For the first 5 minutes, we have a couple of questions that we've prepared, we've discussed with the fellows talking about, and then we'll turn it over to everybody else on the call. And as we referenced, there was so much that went on in the summer of 2020 and throughout 2020. In the Siegel program, we have as one of our core competencies and one of our core values, a commitment to equity and inclusion in our curriculum. And we hope our experience for fellows and partners demonstrates a focus on and a commitment to improving around racial justice. And so we've been talking with fellows about how their prior focus on racial justice and/or how the increased national conversation and action around racial justice that expanded over the summer influenced them or their internships. And so we're going to hear from 1 or 2 or 3 fellows about that before we go on to our next question. So anyone can feel free to unmute themselves, one of the fellows, and chime in.
I can jump in. So like I mentioned in my intro, I worked on research on a guide for equity in healthcare and public health. And when I began my internship, I was primarily focused on equity and healthcare workers during COVID. This was, I think, mid-June. However, after the murder of George Floyd, my supervisor found it necessary to kind of switch gears and focus on her other project, which was the Equity Guide. And so this guide is focusing on strategies for healthcare and public health systems to kind of evaluate themselves and their practices of equity surrounding race and gender specifically, as well as giving steps to hopefully improve and change their organizations after they evaluate themselves. I'm actually still working at Time's Up on this guide part-time this fall, so stay tuned. We're hoping to have it released in January, but who knows? As this summer showed, it's anyone's guess, but we're hoping to push it out ASAP.
Thank you, Mary.
This is sort of a pretty casual response, but working at a predominantly Black organization in the midst of the COVID crisis and this summer's and the death of George Floyd and this summer's consequent revolution was really affirming and sort of comforting, because we actually didn't spend very much time talking explicitly about what was happening with regard to the protests. We just kept doing the work that we were doing, and that was just very interesting to watch. And actually, most of our efforts were focused around education and COVID, and so we were ramping up the opportunities to meet with community educators and leaders about how to prepare for the fall. And so as an organization that focuses on education in the Black community in particular, we sort of saw that as our most important priority at that moment.
Thanks, Lydia.
And Susie, if I could also quickly add, my internship, given like the racial violence discourse that was going on in the protests and events going on this summer, through my internship, I was also able to be a guest speaker for Sociedad Latina, which is one of DPH's grantees. And I was a guest speaker, and I led a talk on the defund the police movement, which was really relevant at the time and something that I was interested in, given my interest in like resource allocation. So that was also an opportunity that I had this summer regarding racial justice and speaking to high schoolers about the defunding the police movement.
Thank you.
I have another question because I noticed that there's going to be a lot of people interested possibly in applying to be a Segal Fellow. And they're probably going to want to know about all the resources and opportunities you've received as being a fellow. So my question to you is, what was the most useful way that you leveraged the Siegel network and Siegel program resources over the past year? This could be something like your placement to the support of your cohort or your buddy to the curriculums, any of those things.
I'll hop in there. Thank you, Kyle. I can't express enough how much my cohort and Susie and Kyle meant to me, just in general, pre-COVID, but especially with everything that's happened that we just mentioned too in these past 7 or 8 months. And I think being able to have a group of people to reflect with and sometimes react with, right, when things had just happened that morning or the day before, and learn from and share with in a comfortable space meant a lot, especially when like a virtual world is really hard to build community sometimes, but to have a group of people where I felt comfortable being able to talk about my personal life or about reactions to events happening across the country and world really meant a lot, especially when starting at a new site where I don't know anyone, right? And I'm spending my whole day in a new place, being able to have a group to go back to every week and be like, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm worried about. But it was also very forward thinking, like, what do we want to do together? And I'm forever grateful for that.
And just quick chime in, I think the most simple, I mean, taking the whole year of like sort of Siegel core learning and the curriculum out of it, just being able to offer up to an organization the backing of the Siegel name and the Heller School, and sort of that recognition that like I've already been sort of selected to be a part of this community for these reasons, and I have funding, and I just need an organization to take me under their wing, made it the easiest process despite COVID. And also the woman I worked for is also an adjunct professor at American University. And she still said she has trouble finding graduate student interns. So she has a lot of undergrad interns and not many grad students. And she's like super excited about having this sort of Siegel Heller connection, because for her, she doesn't have to think much. She just knows that people are sort of already pre-selected for a certain qualities and research interests, and they're just a good fit for her organization.
Great, thank you so much, I appreciate it. Passing off to Susie for the third question.
And, fellows who haven't spoken yet, feel free to bring in any of the answers to any of the other questions that you answer. We had a third question, but I see that Phyllis has a question, so we'll start with her. And if anyone hasn't yet asked about voting in the election, that's our third question, so we'll come back to that for our final question if it's not asked before then. But Phyllis, Siegel,
Yeah,
or
I didn't want to jump ahead, but I do have a question I'm eager to ask. First, I want to say how sad it makes me that this is my first opportunity to be engaging with you collectively, and I just wish we had been able to continue what we started soon after your selection. What you've described gives me such hope for the future of our country. I love each one of your experiences and how you've helped me understand more about the organizations you've worked with, as well as the work that you've done. So on the theme of the future, I'm curious about one question about your future. It's music to my ears how the Siegel program, staff, cohort, curriculum have been important to you so far. And I wonder, as you look ahead now that the internship is done, what are you excited about or hoping for in your ongoing engagement with the fellowship network broader than your cohort?
Yeah, and it would be great to hear from maybe 1 or 2 or 3 fellows on that.
I can speak since I haven't spoken yet. First off, I'm very thankful that I'm a Segal Fellow. I've used so many of the resources during the summer and the year that I've been with the fellowship. And I'm just looking forward to actually using the networking and the community support that the Segal Fellowship provides. I hope to be able to get in contact with housing leaders in the Bay Area soon to start my job application process. And yeah, that's how I envision using the Siegel network as of now, once I graduate.
Thanks, Ali.
Yeah, I think for me, very similar to Alejandro, just utilizing the professional community network that the Siegel network affords me and allows me. As a first generation college student, I don't have a lot of mentors or mentorship or professionals that I know that look like myself. So in the future, I see myself giving back to the program by being a Siegel buddy or being a mentor to incoming fellows in whatever way I can, specifically like men of color like myself.
Thanks so much, John. Is there one more fellow that wants to speak to that before we go on to the next question from Heller Dean David Weil?
I'd just like to add, I hope someday that whatever career I'm in, that I can open up an internship slot for a Siegel Fellow, because I think the opportunities that were opened up to me this summer and this past year, I wouldn't have imagined if it wasn't for this, and I hope someday I can do the same.
Thank you, Phyllis, for your question and everyone for your answers. And Dean David Weil, we're excited to have your question.
Thank you, Susie. First, I just want to say just how inspiring all of your presentations are. And I also peeked at your videos to get a better sense of the work you did. And it's, as I say, it's inspiring, and I congratulate you all on what you've done and what you're going to do. And I also just want to take the chance to thank Phyllis and Maura and Jonathan for just the ongoing support of this incredible program. And thanks to Susie and Kyle for making this all happen. My question is, in all of your experiences, it strikes me there is this tension that is always present in our Heller community on social policy. And it's really a question of how in citizen leadership do you make social change? Do you work through social movements and social pressure? Do you work through policy, more formal policy levers? You all have had experiences that seem to me to blend both, but I would love to hear some reflections on that social movement versus formal policy ways of ultimately achieving social justice ends through citizen leadership.
I think I can try to tackle that. So I worked for Time's Up, and Time's Up has its hand in many different fields. There was a lot of social movements this summer, and Time's Up was definitely played a big part in that. The most recent one is the We Have Her Back campaign, which is about how Kamala Harris is talked about in the media. So they're trying to kind of compare how VP Pence was talked about before he was elected, and then now how Kamala is. In regards to policy, there's a lot of policy being pushed out of Time's Up as well. There was a lot of COVID-specific policies that we pushed for this summer, both at like the healthcare level and just in general. So I think definitely social change happens when both kind of come together. So I was happy to kind of have a lens into both.
Yeah, and I can just chime in. I have a background in sort of grassroots organizing and racial justice activism. For me, it was cool to be in an organization where, while all of this, and I'm also from St. Louis, Missouri, did a lot of Ferguson organizing. So it's like Ferguson round 2, and it's just like very jarring, and there's so much to get involved in. And it was really cool to sort of feel that I was on the behind the scenes end this time. And I oftentimes question my impact and my sort of place in the movement, and feel very, confident and content with my contribution on the sort of policy and organizing and campaign end of sort of racial justice versus being out in the streets like I was in 2014.
Thank you, Lydia. I know that we're inviting additional questions, and for any fellows and participants who can stay on at 12:30, we welcome you to stay on for a couple minutes afterwards to keep talking. But with only 2 or 3 minutes left, we did want to tie for fellows and for all of us this into the election we're in the middle of right now, which we know isn't just about being aware and active and working to vote and protect the vote through November 3rd, that this is an ongoing process. But some of our fellows focused their work directly on voting rights and voting access, like Irma, and we know Elizabeth is on from NALEO. Others of you focused on key election issues in your internships. And so we asked the fellows to think a little bit about how the upcoming election has influenced their experience as a fellow this summer and fall, not just in their internship, but in their lives as citizen leaders as a whole. So we'll formally close with that question, and I'll do a thank you after that, but then anyone who can stay on for a couple minutes after that is welcome to. And John, you're muted, but it looked like you were trying to talk, so feel free to go ahead and unmute if you can. And thank you to Kendall, our John's supervisor, who's chatted in her congratulations.
Yeah, I feel like for me, not specifically in regards to the presidential election, but I feel like this summer I really was able to just understand the importance of elected officials, both at the federal and state level, and their role in like allocating local and state funding and how that impacts communities who receive those fundings. And just the importance of like elected officials representing their constituents and their constituents' needs and providing those needs, and it not just being viewed from an individualistic perspective is something that I learned and was able to see the importance of in my internship this summer.
Thanks, John. Knowing that we're closing out, maybe we'll hear just another 30 or 60 seconds from each person. And Ale, we heard from you a little earlier, but maybe we can come back to you next.
Yeah, like John, not directly to the current presidential election, but I did learn through my internship the importance of local governments, like communities, local districts, and the way that the government and the federal government provides funds to these communities and districts, how important it is to be doing the work locally and ensuring that communities are being represented fairly. Personally, I don't see the election, the presidential election, as supportive for communities like mine, and any side. And I think that my internship this summer kind of reinforced why that is, and that the need for local push and local work to ensure that we are getting representatives at a local level that will actually do the work to make sure that we get the representatives that we need.
Thanks, Ali.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in because Irma Zamaripa is not here today, but her work is no less important. She actually ran a virtual workshop called Advocacy 101, specifically on how to get people access to the census, to understand their voting rights, specifically for those, the Latinx community within Texas. And she invited the resources of having John Valance, who is another fellow, 2018 fellow who came in and was part of an actual campaign for local office in Massachusetts. So it really was great to see someone who was a fellow in their active internship talk about the election with using the network and using other fellows as a resource. And I just want to give her a quick shout out there too, because I watched it. It was very impressive.
Thanks, Kyle. And Irma or Mary or Zayna, is there anything else you wanted to close us out with briefly?
I can just chime in. I also watched Irma's presentation, and I really thought it was well done. She put a lot of work into it, and it definitely inspired me to kind of get more involved with my local politics, as well as kind of encourage everyone else to vote in every way they can.
I'll just add really briefly, something Alejandro said really stood out to me. And I spent the summer thinking a lot about whose voices are represented, right? And at a state level, how are gateway cities represented, and who within those cities, youth and families of color, people from low income families, how are they represented at state level? And like even just tracking the Mass state budget every day, trying to see what the conversation was and if those voices were brought in was very, just heightened that reality for me that we need more representation at all levels.
Thank you, Zayna. And with that, I know there are a couple of people who said, I don't want to take time from the fellows, but I have some questions. So anyone who can stay on for another 5, 10, 15 minutes, we'll go on until 12:45. I know Maura's just chatted in, and she was one of the kind people that said, no, I don't want to talk, let me hear from the fellows. But as you can see from Maura and everyone else who's chatted in, we are so inspired by you, all of our fellows, by you, our host site partners. We believe in the mission and the power of the Siegel program and in what the center and Heller and Brandeis are all about. Somebody chatted in, may we go from strength to strength. And your citizen leadership and what we hope to help you continue to do as fellows inspires all of us. So with that, we want to thank you guys so much for presenting. Thank everyone who joined us today and hope that many of you can stay on for another 5 or 10 minutes to chat a little more. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today.